Hello there. Welcome to all of you who are watching this later on. In fact, most of you will probably watch this via replay. My name's Corey. Welcome. Nice to meet you. Good to see you. I'm going to take a few moments to, excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm going to take a few moments to say what's up to the folks that are live on Facebook. So those of you watching on other platforms later on, just bear with me for a few moments, or if you want, you can fast forward until I start moving my hands a lot, and then it may seem like I'm actually talking about something. But I'm going to pause for a moment to say hi to the folks that are here live. Don't always do this, but I'm going to do it today. My baby is here. Hi, babe. Sarah's here. Hello. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Angela Jackson, all the way from, I think, Atlanta. Good morning, Megan or Megan. Good morning, Ariel. Good to see you on your worldwide tour. Let's see. I'm going to say, if you're here, just stop and say good morning. Good morning, Melissa. Good morning, Monique. Good morning, Becky. Good to see all of you. Thank you guys for being here. All right. I'm going to go away from the comments. So if you say anything else, I won't see it because I don't want to get distracted by the stuff you guys are saying. I already have enough trouble focusing as is. Okay. But good morning to all of you. If you're watching this later and you want to share it, you can feel free to share it. If you're watching it live, you want to share it, feel free to share it. You never have to ask me for that. I want to just tell you that, especially those of you who maybe someone shared this with you or you stumbled across this page and you're like, what's Existential Sunday? Existential Sunday is an extension of a podcast I do called Existential, and that podcast is all about justice, faith, and culture. But all of the conversations take place from a deconstructed or decolonized space, right? So if you don't know what that means, if you don't know what deconstruction is, it's essentially where you believed or grew up with some sort of tradition or ideas about things, and over time, either you read something or you were exposed to something or you experienced something, and so those things started to kind of fall away, and you found yourself kind of being like, I'm not sure what's up, what's down, what I believe, what I don't believe. And you just go on this journey to figure out what those things are. That is what this is, right? That's what Existential, the podcast, and this live is all about. It's about making space for people who are going through that experience. People who maybe you went to church for years and years and years, and you found that at church, you weren't really satisfied with the answers you were getting. Maybe you were frustrated by the fact that not only were you not getting great answers for things, but you weren't even allowed to ask certain questions. Maybe in 2016, you got like really, really disoriented because what should be a faith that's about including people and bringing people in and embracing people where they are and helping people and lifting up the marginalized and the outcasts. Maybe if that's what you thought faith was about, because that is what it should be about. In 2016, you watched as so many people of faith seem to align themselves with the complete opposite. And so you find yourself going, wait a minute. Like if you guys are telling me that a racist, despite the fact that they think that they're the least racist person in the room, a xenophobe, a homophobe, a brash, sexist person is God's choice to lead us, then if you were a person that saw that and went, then that began your deconstruction. Like this is who I'm talking to. You are right at home right here today, right? And in fact, we are not the first people to find ourselves running away from people who are connected to God, and finding ourselves licking our wounds out in the middle of a wilderness because of experiences that we've had with people who were connected to God. In fact, in the Bible, there's a story of a Black woman. Yes, there are Black people in the Bible. There's a story of a Black woman who is she's enslaved to couple. She's enslaved to this couple, and they are, cast as God's people. And this couple that she's enslaved to can't get pregnant, so they decide to take their enslaved Black woman and try to have a child through her. Right? And if you read this story, it's actually in Genesis chapter 16. If you read this story, it's really kind of messed up the way they actually talk about this Black slave woman. I mean, but it's actually the way that, we would expect any oppressors to talk about people that they're oppressing, right? They talk about her in ways that are dehumanizing, and the ways that strip her of her dignity, and they talk about her in ways that they're just exchanging a thing so that they can get done what they want, get done what they believe to be what God has asked them to do. And just for the record, as a side note, for those of you that are, have some Christian orientation or part of the Christian tradition, I don't say these things to tell you that the Bible is full of shit. That's not my point. That's not what I'm trying to communicate. The way I view the Bible is actually in this way, and this may help you, those of you who have any inkling for the Bible or think about the Bible, is like, I view it in this way. I don't expect a 5-year-old little girl at her piano recital to sound like Alicia Keys playing piano. I expect a 5-year-old to sound like a 5-year-old. And we would all be amazed if that 5-year-old sounded like Alicia Keys at 5. And the reason we'd all be amazed is because there's no expectation that we have for something in an early stage to sound like something that is in a later stage of development. And so as I look at these ancient texts, no matter what the religion is, what the tradition is, what the faith tradition is, if you look at these ancient texts, we are all looking at things in a more underdeveloped stage. And I'm not going to look at that and expect it to be to have all of the science and discovery and experience of 2020. I can't expect like 8 billion BC to have the same experience and understanding and process as 2020 does. So that's just, aside when I'm talking about how weird it may be if you read the story in Genesis, bear in mind that what you're reading and the awkwardness of it, it's like you're looking at a 5-year-old playing piano. She's just trying to figure it out. Okay. So in this story, this Black woman, after getting pregnant and being forced into surrogacy by this couple, she finds herself out in the wilderness, and out in the middle of this open space in the desert, she encounters what this old folk story describes as an angel of the Lord, or an angel of God. And this angel of God is usually in these kinds of stories kind of synonymous with God. So this angel of God / deity, this person, this being, this divine being that she encounters in the wilderness, starts to reassure her that she's going to be okay. They have this whole conversation back and forth. This deity promises that her and her family will be fine for generations and generations and generations. And as the story and tradition goes, this is actually the bloodline that gives us the nation, not the nation, but gives us the tradition of Islam. Actually, is from this encounter out in the wilderness. The woman I'm talking about, her name is Hagar. And her oppressors are Abraham and Sarah. You may have heard of them. And I encourage you actually to pick up this book where my source material for all of this stuff is actually a Black woman named Dolores Williams, who wrote a book called Sisters in the Wilderness. And in her book, Sisters of the Wilderness, she quotes another Black woman, I believe, named Phyllis Tribble, who is the source or the scholar behind the following statement that I thought was just incredible. When you hear what I'm about to say, especially if you're a person of faith and coming out of the Christian tradition, you may be like, what? Because I was like, what? Hagar in this story, in the middle of the wilderness, having left her oppressors who enslaved her, Abraham and Sarah, Father Abraham, who had many sons, she calls God Elroy. And I've heard this before, that like she called God Elroy. Number one, I never saw this story until Dolores Williams. I never saw this story from the perspective of this enslaved Black woman. I only saw this story from the perspective of the oppressors, which is basically the entire issue with why we find ourselves deconstructing anyway, because most of the stories that we hear from especially this Western evangelical Christian perspective tend to be from the perspective of the oppressor. They are rarely, if ever, almost never from the perspective of the oppressed, which is ironic because the entire text from the First Testament to the Second Testament is written by people whose perspective is that of the oppressed. Anyway, never saw the story that way. What I never saw that blew my mind was, this Black woman, Hagar, is the only person in the entire Bible, from Genesis of the First Testament to the book of the Apocalypse in the Second Testament, the only person to actually name God. Like she doesn't call on the name Elroy. She actually names her own experience with God, and she names God. I think I'm gonna let that sit with you for a second, because and if it's not mind blowing to you, it's fine. But for me, when I first read it, again, I didn't know it. So I'm gonna sip some water and let you take that in. Mm-hmm. It's good water. This Black woman, and we may not have even known that Hagar was Black if you come out of a faith tradition that doesn't really talk about the ethnicity of these people in these stories. A Black woman is the only person in the entire thousands and thousands of years of writings to name God Elroy. And just as a bonus, she not only names God, but scholars believe that this naming, the way that she names God, is actually from her own Egyptian tradition, embedded in the name Elroy. And if you look at it like in Hebrew and a bunch of different languages and stuff that is way smarter than me, you find embedded in there this name Ra, which is the Egyptian god, the all-seeing eye, Ra. In fact, she names Elroy the God who sees. And she says, I'm paraphrasing, I'm going to super paraphrase actually. She says, wow, I have had an encounter with the God who sees and survived. Like, she reaches back into her African traditions and what she understood from Africa, from being, and she reaches into that to name her current experience out in the wilderness, because she's having such a hard time with her current oppressors. I wanted to talk to you guys about this, and I'm about to land the plane. I may land the plane early today. I wanted to talk to y'all about this today because I was a little bit triggered, a lot of bit triggered actually, earlier this week when I saw, well, first off, I was triggered at the debate when the president of the United States said I'm the least racist person in the room. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go there, because I want to stay focused on the thing that's most important, because that's just folly. That's just silly. We all know that's ridiculous. At least I hope we all know that's ridiculous. Later on, after that, in referring to Senator Kamala Harris, who he keeps going after, he says, Kamala, whatever her name is. And then another white, I believe Republican person I heard also do the same thing. Kamala, whatever her name is, reaching. Let me just explain to you, for those of you who don't know, why that is so grossly offensive, nasty, gross, reprehensible. because you are disregarding the name of a Black woman, knowing full well that the base that you're talking to will find that so amusing that you are once again in America taking the dignity of a Black woman, taking the crown, the shine, the mystique, the majesty of a Black woman. You're taking it and you're balling it up and you're crumpling it and you're spitting on it and you're stepping on it because you know that your audience would love to see you do that. And I am here saying to you that we should be listening to Black women, because Black women, if we're looking at Hagar as an example, the very first Black woman we see in the story of God and people, we see God with a Black woman, allowing that Black woman, not just allowing, that Black woman is naming her experience in the wilderness, and God shows up to be with her twice in the wilderness. There's another story where God shows up to be with her. That there's this power that exists amongst people who get pushed out to the side. I've told y'all this many times, and no one in this country historically, if we line up how they've been treated, has been treated worse than Black women. In the modern era, Black trans women turning up dead all the time, and people actually not paying attention to it. We need to listen to Black women because Black women are our salvation. We need to lean into the experience of Black women because that is the salvation of our country, of ourselves, of our lives. You need to read Black women because there's something that they have to say about the world that we all need to be listening to. And I'll just pause right here. I talk to you guys pretty real and honest and raw. I haven't been great at this. I live in a household with 4 Black women. And I am learning to deconstruct my own patriarchy, my own sense of importance, the way I show up in spaces, the way I show up in conversations, the way I show up as a Black man and feel entitled to interrupt because what I have to say is more important. In fact, my wife and I were sitting down a couple of days ago, and she challenged me on that about being in the house with Black women. And I initially was defensive and was like, you know what you're talking about? What you mean? What you mean I don't be listening? I'm always listening as I'm not listening. And I just sit there and ask questions about, okay, how can I be better? How can I hear you, and how can I respond to you, and how can I behave in a way that tells you that I do respond, and I do hear you, and I am listening. Folks, we as a family are about to send 3 Black women into the world. And I want to send those Black women into a world that listens to them. I want to send them into a world that does not marginalize them, into a world that doesn't allow them to be interrupted by white men. I loved, and we all did. It's why there's so many memes and GIFs about it. We all loved when Senator Kamala Harris sat in her own experience and named that she was speaking. That was a powerful moment for all of us. We saw it. We knew what it represented. We felt what it represented. We felt that moment. And Black women all over the world saw that and went, yes. And all of us who were paying attention, also, all of us men who were paying attention, we went, yes, 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 that's it. That's it. That's it. That's it right there. That moment right there. I am speaking. I want to see a world and contending for a world where my daughters can walk into a boardroom with their heads held high, not subservient to anybody, but they're on an equal playing field, where they can name their experience, where they can name their ideas and not be interrupted, not be typecast as like something different than just the powerful, dignified, beautiful Black women that they are. Yeah. I want to see them be in charge. I want to see them believing they can be the president of the whole damn world if they want to be. I want to see there be less and less of this first black whatever. It's 2020, and we are still in the United States seeing things like and hearing things like the first black to blah, 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 blah. Oh man, I can't wait to live in a world where we're not talking about the first black woman to, we're talking about the something that black women just do, to live in a world where we're on our 5th or 6th or 7th or 10th. Maybe I won't get to live that long. Black president, black woman who's the president, black woman who's the CEO, black woman who has amassed a fortune, black woman who has discovered a cure for X, Y, and Z, black woman who is leading. That's the kind of world that I'm contending for, and I would like for us to see, to be a part of, to make happen. If you are a black woman and you're watching this, I want to just encourage you, as probably for most of you, like an older brother type, because I am 40, almost 41. I'm old enough to not even care how old I actually am. I want to say to you, lift your voice, even if there has to be a tremble in it, even if you have to lift it with some uncertainty, with some fear, with some anxiety. Name, in the naming of God, Hagar is an example for all of us, but it's especially for you as black women, to name your own experience, to name what's happening on the inside of you, what's happening in your brain, to name it, to say it out loud, to object when you're being interrupted, to lift your voice and say, I'm not finished. To not allow yourselves to be the objects to our daughters, to not allow yourselves to be the objects, but also to not allow yourself to not live into the full experience of who you are sexually, who you are as a human, who you are as an intellectual, who you are as a human being, that you get to name that and you get to live that and you get to be that without anybody having to give you the permission to do so. I, as an older brother to you, uncle, and certainly to my daughters as your dad, yeah, I want you to walk with your head high and a sense of ownership of the ground you're walking on, because it's yours. And to the rest of us, non-black women, we got to be better advocates. We got to be better at lifting our voices. We got to be better at recognizing the gift that black women are to us. We have to be better at at noticing the shit that happens, right? That the stuff that shows up to oppress black women, to make it difficult on black women, to make it hard on them. We have to be noticing that and calling it out and witnessing it and standing up for, and not speaking over or even speaking for, but like making sure that we are doing our part to be advocates, to help clear the way. Yeah, I think that's a good place to land the plane. I'm feeling a lot of stuff right now. I'm feeling a lot of stuff, and I also know that I have a journey to make, and yeah, got my own journey in this, and I'm not sitting here talking to you guys like I figured a bunch of stuff out, because I haven't. I'm still wanting to grow and learn, running into boundaries and having those boundaries tell me that I was toxic as a man, and being willing to listen, take a step back. I've told you guys before, there was a black non-binary femme friend of mine who told me that I wasn't going hard enough for Breonna Taylor. And I said, okay. It's my wife who's looked at me a couple different times and had to tell me that I was showing up in ways that were harmful and not creating an environment that allows her and my daughters as Black women to thrive. And I've had to go, okay, and try my best to be better. And that's all I'm asking of you as men that are watching this. You're human also. Try your best to be better, to do better, to listen, to not be defensive, to show up for Black women, show up for Breonna Taylor, show up for, unfortunately, the more Black women who will lose their lives due to the violence that white supremacy has delivered to us. In fact, in Oakland, there was a young woman, a young 18-year-old woman recently who was shot and killed due to violence. My thoughts and my heart and my prayers go out to that woman and to Pastor Mike McBride, who was on the ground to be with that family. And as I found out ways that we can show up for that family, I'll let you know. Last thing I'll say to you, then I'm gonna get out of here for real. Vote. We got, I don't know how many days, 9? I think it's 9 days, 9 days from now. Many people have already voted. Many of you already mailed in your votes. You have already gone and voted early. Please vote. Even if you're in a state where you think it's already decided. Like here, I live in California. California has been blue since, I don't know. I tried to say something that rhymed, but it was going to be stupid, so I didn't. But it's been blue for a long time, and so maybe that discourages you. Or maybe you live in a red state, and you're like, well, it doesn't matter what happens. No, I would just vote. Vote. There's power to it. There's something to be said for doing that, letting your voice be heard. Don't be a person who decides to sit this one out. This is the most important election of our lifetime because it's the election that's in front of us. It does feel a lot heavier this time, but we always say that. We always say it's the most important election of our lifetime. This one might actually be, who knows? But it's important. Show up, vote. God bless you, my friends. If you watch this whole thing and you'd like to share it, again, you don't have to ask my permission to share it. Feel free to do so. If you want to tag on Facebook, if you want to tag people in the comments, you can do that also. I appreciate all of you who stop by here all the time. Like always, you're a regular to Existential Sunday. I appreciate you. All of you who subscribe to the podcast and listen to the podcast, I appreciate you. If you are a Patreon supporter, check the Patreon from time to time. I've been dropping some stuff in there for y'all, like stuff I've written that people may never read. Early releases of content and stuff like that, and stuff I just want to share with you because you're the community. So make sure you check the Patreon if you are part of that community. Grace and peace to all of you. Until next time.